Welcome to the Minutes to Win It podcast. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Nick Rodriguez at Rodriguez DFS. Still looking at NBA slates here as we wind down in the season, and Nick and I have an interesting battle coming up soon. So you might hear him talk bad about Boston as the Celtics and Heat might be playing each other in the first round of the playoffs. But we'll keep it friendly, on air with dissecting the slate here.
Exactly. I'm scared of the Celtics. That's why I'm a little worried. I know we play you guys the last game of the season, but should be a lot of fun and great basketball.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have no answer for Whiteside down low, so it'll be fun watching him go 20-20 every night.
We haven't found an answer for Sullinger either, so definitely be interesting.
Looking at tonight's slate, taking a look at some of the lines here, and there are some blowout concerns. Obviously, that Boston team, 14.5-point favorites against really what's a backup squad of New Orleans. Washington, 13.5-point favorites against Brooklyn. The Lakers line's what's really kind of interesting here, just a 9.5-point spread, which against the Lakers, you expect someone to be sitting tonight. And we were trying to speculate before the show. It looks like it's going to be either a combination or all three of J.J. Redick, DeAndre Jordan, and Chris Paul.
Yeah, it's definitely one to keep an eye on. It'll probably be an announcement last minute before lock. So just refresh your Twitter page and hopefully they announce it on time.
Yeah, definitely be prepared. You and I are in similar thinking tonight of breaking down the games. Really looking at OKC Portland, 218 total there. Looking at Houston Dallas, 206. And also, I mean, the Cleveland situation there's some possible sitting news, which we'll get to, but that's a fine game to target as well. But I mean, really, you and I are kind of looking really at those last two games of the night as far as all the scoring goes.
Yeah, definitely. Especially Houston Dallas. I think it's going to be a very intense game as both teams are fighting for a playoff spot in the Western Conference.
Yeah, that's one to keep an eye on. We've seen Harden just absolutely carry this team on his back, and yeah, he's got a high price tag, but you and I are plugging him into our lineups and building around him tonight.
Definitely him and the beer.
Yeah. Looking at point guard tonight, some interesting news if LeBron James or Kevin Love sit. It could be a combination. It could be one of each. Kyrie Irving would become a pretty top play sitting at that depleted price tag because he would take on all the usage going up against Indiana. Although it's not the most ideal matchup in the world, anytime he's the featured player of this Cavs offense, he's usually going to go out and do his thing.
Yeah, definitely. Especially for that 7,200 price tag you mentioned. If LeBron or Love sit, I think he's a great play. But honestly, even if them three play, I still think he's a solid cash option tonight.
Yeah, he's been really solid over the last few games or so. Looking up top, I mean, you got a lot of top options. John Wall, Chris Paul, if Paul plays, and some blowout concern. I mean, Paul, it was unreal, 23 minutes against the Lakers, and he puts up nearly 50 fantasy points. So that just shows you how good he is against his Lakers team. But, he's a pretty easy fade for me just because even if he does play, I'd rather go a little bit cheaper or pay up for a guy like Westbrook.
Yeah, I'm with you on that same page. I don't think if he plays 20 minutes again, he'll hit 50 fantasy points, but it is the Lakers he's playing. And I really like Westbrook. I prefer him over Durant big time. I think he has a better matchup, and I think him and Damian are going to go at it. And he could end up with another triple-double.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, he's up to 17 on the season now, and as you mentioned, I do like Westbrook a lot more than Durant tonight, just because he's going to see a ton of Aminu, while Westbrook's going to see Lillard, who's not a good defender by any means. Looking down lower, I think Kemba Walker, if Nicholas Batum sits, will take on a bigger usage there. Kind of intriguing at the price tag there, kind of a swerve off of those top plays. Anyone else you're kind of looking at in that middle tier there?
I think Kemba's a great tournament play. I'm glad you mentioned him. If Batum's out, his usage rate will jump higher. He'll be the main focal point of the offense. So he's definitely a great play for tournaments. And the other guy I'm looking at is J.J. Barea. We mentioned we both like that Houston-Dallas game, and with Darren Williams out, he's going to see a lot of minutes in the 30s, and it's going to be an intense game, and J.J. tends to come through in big games.
Yeah, I mean the guy's absolutely been crushing over the last few games since um, Williams has gone down. He scored over 20 real points in the last three. Um, and the minutes, as you mentioned, have been in the 30s, which is nice. And this game, pretty high total to target. Barea still, his price has come up, but still not too expensive. Um, he's a guy who kind of just fits right into play in all formats. Looking a little bit lower, Shane Larkin is kind of my only other option that I'm going down low, averaging over 25 points over the last 5 games. Decent matchup against Washington and their perimeter defense. He's a guy who's not really part of the big blowout factor just because they are just kind of running their young guys out there and giving them minutes this season.
Exactly. He's a great play, like you mentioned. But one other guy I'm really looking at is your boy Marcus Smart. We mentioned this game has blowout concern. If it does get out of hand, I see him playing minutes in the 30s, and he's been getting minutes in the 20s in his last 10 games and averaging 24 fantasy points. So I think he's a great play in all formats tonight as well.
Yeah, that's a good call right there. He's been pretty consistent over the last really week and a half or so, and his price really hasn't shown any sort of shot at coming up. So I think he's a pretty solid value play in all formats, like you mentioned. That's a good call. Looking at shooting guard, I think it's a pretty easy night to just plug in James Harden and move on from there. I mean, the guy's absolutely crushing over the last few weeks. He's crushed Dallas this year. Uh, there's just no way around playing Harden for me tonight.
Yeah, I'm right with you there. Looking, Batum's questionable, so I'm not going to play him. Victor Oladipo has a tough matchup. Maybe you can go CJ McCollum, but it's a tough matchup, and I just think Harden is the play tonight.
Yeah, it's kind of, if you're looking on FanDuel where you have to roster two, you can look a little bit cheaper. You can look at guys like Wesley Matthews, who's been playing a while. You can possibly take a look if Jamal Crawford, if those Clippers guys get some rest, Jamal Crawford would be a big bump. I think that's kind of who I'm looking for as far as shooting guards go. If I'm pairing them up with Harden, but like DK, it's just Harden, and I'm probably going to be moving on from this position.
Definitely, I love the Jamal call. If Redick and Paul sit, he's a must play. If one of those guys sit, I think he's a great play with that price tag.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone you're kind of looking at outside? I mean, J.R. Smith, he's kind of been a little bit up and down lately, but obviously coming off 2 strong games, still at a pretty intriguing price tag. I mean, if LeBron and Kevin Love sit, he's definitely going to get some offensive pickup.
Definitely, his usage rate will go up, and we all know he's streaky. If his shots falling, last game he shot 11 3-pointers and made 7 of them. So if his shots falling, he can have a big night.
Yeah, and he's kind of an interesting pivot off of, some of those other cheaper options.
Definitely, and a couple other guys I'm looking at is Austin Rivers. Like we mentioned, the situation if both guys do sit, Doc Rivers is going to want to play his son quite a bit, so he can get minutes in the 30s, high 20s. And we saw that one game, I think he scored 50 fantasy points, 51 when they both sat out against OKC.
Yeah,
So he's definitely a nice play if both those guys sit.
and now going up against the Lakers. So I mean, he can definitely, if he's seeing 30+ minutes tonight, he's a lock. And at a shooting guard spot, he's point guard on FanDuel there, but I mean, shooting guard, that's a pretty decent value spot. And I think you're looking at guys like Oladipo, McCollum. Really, you want to kind of either pay up for Harden and go down a little bit lower.
Definitely no. I mean, McCollum's the other option, but I think Harden is the play tonight.
Yeah. Looking at small forward, we mentioned Durant kind of getting a tougher draw against Aminu there. Yes, he's been good, been pretty consistent, but I think he ranks kind of third on my list behind guys over 10K like Westbrook and Harden.
Yeah, I'm with you on Westbrook. Amino, we've seen the type of defense he's playing this season, and in 3 games against Portland this year, Durant's only averaging 39 fantasy points.
Yeah,
So I don't want to pay that 10 grand for 40 fantasy points.
Yeah, I mean that's a decent sized track record from this season. You're looking at LeBron James, who's possibly going to rest tonight. That's something to keep an eye on. Um, Paul George and Carmelo Anthony, those are kind of two intriguing options that are on the cheaper side. Definitely, they're not Durant or LeBron, but you can get a nice $2,000 discount and get a pretty good floor. And I know you like Melo. I do as well in tonight's matchup. I think I'll kind of lean his way.
Yeah, the matchup is there for him, and with the unicorn, aka Porzingis, out, he's going to see his usage rate jump from 28.6 all the way to 32%. So he's going to take more shots, and he's the main focal point of that Knicks offense.
Yeah, and the good thing is we've already got a confirmation that Melo's going to play down the stretch, so no worries of kind of rest or anything for him, which is nice. Um, there's one guy I'm kind of keeping an eye on in tournaments, more so on DK, Jay Crowder. There is a blowout concern there, but he is just 5,800. He's played really well since coming back from injury, in obviously two games, but against Portland and the Lakers, 34 and 44 points. I still think at 5,800, he kind of goes out and hits his value anyway, even if he's not playing heavy into the fourth.
Yeah, I like Crowder, but we mentioned the blowout concern. I'm a little worried about that. But one guy to keep an eye on is Tobias Harris. He's going up against Orlando. He played with them his first few years in the league, so I think it's a revenge game, narrative street, and a beautiful matchup for him as well.
Yeah, you mentioned that narrative street, and that's there. And Tobias has been thriving with Detroit, and obviously gets a great matchup alongside that little narrative there. I think he's a great call, and his price tag is just pretty easy to fit into most lineups tonight.
Exactly. He should hit 5 times value tonight without a question.
Yeah. Look at some other guys here. Taking a look at Michael Beasley, obviously a GPP only play who's been really up and down. But I mean, when he's on and when he's shooting the ball, the guy can really rack up points. And power forwards against Dallas have had pretty good success this season. Beasley definitely a high upside play from that game because really outside of Harden, I don't find myself looking at too many other Rockets other than him.
Yeah, especially he's going to be coming off the bench. He's their main scorer, so Beasley's going to get his points and his rebounds. Definitely a great play.
Yeah. The New Orleans situation, obviously guys like Luke Babbitt have been playing more minutes and playing pretty well. That's a situation where, once again, they don't have a ton of options. Like him and Jordan Hamilton are still going to pick up 25-plus minutes. Boston, I'm not attacking their backcourt, but I'll definitely attack the fronts, small forward, power forward, center there. I think Babbitt's my preferred play as far as points per dollar go. He's just one of the better value plays I see on the slate, especially at small forward.
Yeah, I prefer him over Beasley. And if you can't afford Babbitt, you can drop down to Hamilton. Hamilton should get 20 to 30 fantasy points. They're going to get their minutes, and the production has been there no matter the matchup.
Yeah. And Jeff Green, he's another guy. If guys sit tonight, he'll be a focal point of the offense. We didn't see it a ton in that OKC game, but he's going up against the Lakers if he plays 25-plus minutes. I mean, he's dirt cheap, so he's definitely worth a look tonight.
Yes, him as well. And one of the guys, Dante Cunningham. We mentioned how thin the Pelicans are with their roster, and he's been getting a lot of minutes. And for 3,600, he's been hitting 20 fantasy points.
Yeah, I mean that's an area to attack, and you really got three guys. You're kind of hoping one of them can get pushed out of small forward because three of them at one spot is kind of frustrating when you have to choose one or two there.
Yeah, but you got the small forward, the forward, and utility on DraftKings, and on FanDuel you can just do eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Yeah, basically, and then pair him up with someone a little bit higher, so that's nice. Looking at power forward tonight, and really because Blake Griffin's kind of on a little bit of a minute restriction, coming back from injury, a matchup against the Lakers, not really on my radar. I'm curious to see when he starts getting his full minutes. I think maybe at the first round of the playoffs, if that price tag jumps, because we never see Blake Griffin at 7,300.
No, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, but with those minutes, I'm not going to take a chance on it in cash games.
Yeah. Looking at Kevin Love, he could be out tonight. That might open the door for guys like Tristan Thompson, Channing Frye coming into play. Both decent. decent options. Indiana, not that great of a rebounding team, so take over for me while I drink.
Make sure you're okay, drink your tea. But yeah, I think Channing Frye and Tristan Thompson come into play if Kevin Love does in fact rest tonight. A couple other guys that I really like is Dirk Nowitzki. We mentioned how much we like this game. His usage rate has been higher than usual with Williams out and Parsons. And Randall's been playing great basketball for 5,900. I think that's a steal as well.
Yeah, both those guys are great options, and they're both not expensive guys to fit into the lineup as well. I definitely like those calls. I think power forward is pretty thin tonight. Um, really, outside of that, you can look at Ibaka in tournaments at 5,500. Markieff Morris is kind of an interesting GPP play. Been playing really well of late. Gets a nice matchup against Brooklyn. I mean, if he plays over 30 minutes in tonight's game, I think at that price tag, he easily can come across as one of the better power forward plays come the end of the night.
Yeah, I love the Markeith card. I skipped right past him and I was looking at the guy under him. Who's
Yeah.
that guy? Let you talk about him.
Thomas Robinson, I think that's going to be the popular guy tonight. He's got a pretty big site difference as far as salaries go. I mean, 4,700 there on DK, and I mean you're looking at 6,000 on FanDuel. Who would have thought Thomas Robinson would be 6,000 on FanDuel come this season?
Especially with how generous FanDuel usually is with their pricing and how strict DraftKings is.
Yeah, it's kind of odd, but either way, Robinson's been solid down the stretch here. He's a great rebounder, averaging about 13 per game over the last four. Going to play right around 28, 27 minutes per game, and the matchup's not too bad against Washington. They rank 25th in rebounding. He's another guy who I just think great cash game play as far as value goes. I'm looking at Morris as more of the GPP pivot when comparing the two.
Definitely, but the good thing about Robinson is Willie Reed's going to be out for the rest of the season. So I wouldn't be surprised if he plays 30 to 35 minutes tonight with
Yeah,
how thin that front court is.
definitely. Anyone else you're kind of eyeing at power forward?
Let me scroll down. Robinson is probably the top cash play. We mentioned Channing Frye, and that's pretty much it for
Yeah.
me.
I think if Love sits, I think it just looks like Thompson, Fry, and then obviously Robinson is kind of the value guys there.
Yeah, I'm right with you there.
Looking at center tonight, and you look at DeAndre Jordan, who could be out. That would mean Cole Aldridge would come in and step into play, get a Lakers front court that has been dreadful against centers. I mean, you can really open things up here tonight if the Clippers rest some guys and really stack some big stars and do some kind of impressive stars and scrubs who are going to be playing full minutes.
Definitely. That guy Cole, every time he steps in for DeAndre, he plays so well. So he's definitely a great play, especially against the Lakers.
Yeah, he's going to get that front court and be pretty dominant. I mean, he played just 19 minutes against them last game, obviously, with everyone playing, and he went 6 and 8. So, when he steps into play, you look at 30 minutes against an OKC front court, that's tough, and went 6 and 10 with 3 steals. So I expect him to play well and easily hit, over 6 times value on this matchup.
Definitely. I recommend all these value plays we're mentioning, just plug them in a lineup and put Westbrook and Harden in it as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if that didn't hit.
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement. I mean, I think that's a great way to start. Westbrook and Harden are by far the safer options on tonight's slate, and value gets a little bit safer as we come down just because the minutes are a little bit more consistent. Another guy, Alexia Jinka, he's been playing right around 25 minutes, 26 points per game, gets a Boston front court that struggles against center. He's just another one. I mean, continuously finding these value plays, especially from New Orleans and these teams that are out of it. I think Aldridge is just an easier play if he goes just because he's cheaper.
Definitely, I'm right with you there as well.
Looking up top, you can look at Jared Sullinger in GPPs. Gets a great matchup. Obviously, there's blowout concern. He went for over 40 against them earlier this season. New Orleans struggles against centers. Outside of that, I mean, if I'm paying up, it's going to be for Drummond. I don't see anyone else that I really like.
I'm with you on Drummond. I love him a lot. They're fighting for a playoff spot, so I think he's gonna have to do a lot of work, especially with a nice matchup against I forget how to say his name. Vucevic? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I call him Gucci Mane. Gucci Mane.
I like Gucci Mane better. And then you got Jared Sullinger, great tournament play, like you mentioned. And then one other guy I'm looking at, you mentioned Alexis, another great play is Zaza. I'm not sure why, but I love him tonight against Houston. I know his minutes have been inconsistent, but I see him hitting close to 30 minutes matching up against Dwight. I see him hitting a double-double and having himself a nice night.
Yeah, it's a good call there. They've at least recently been leaning on him a little bit more as they've faced some big centers, and the matchup's pretty solid down low. Howard's having one of his poor defensive year on the season. They're not a good rebounding team, so I definitely like that call for just 3,600. All right, so here we are. Who's your favorite? Who's your top scorer that's not James Harden tonight?
Top scorer that's not James Harden.
Or
Westbrook.
Westbrook. No, or Westbrook. You know what? No,
Oh.
or Westbrook.
um, Put me on the spot like that. You should have asked me. I say, is this Robinson, Thomas Robinson?
Ooh, going cheap. You're thinking what? 40 burger from him tonight?
A 40 burger, and I'm calling. You know what? Carmelo looks good too. I wouldn't be surprised if he hit 50. I'm gonna say Carmelo.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Lillard. I'm kind of hoping that game stays close with by Lillard kind of doing his thing and going off. That could be a fun one. I think that's going to be one of my favorite games to watch tonight. If you're tuning in to any NBA tonight, that's a game to kind of keep an eye on.
Definitely. How about Boston and New Orleans? Are you watching that game?
I'll keep tabs on it on my phone. I mean, they're playing that D League team down in New Orleans, so that's gonna wrap things up here with the minutes to win it. Check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content.